Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to talk about Donald Goines. If you don't know who he is, Donald Goines is an American urban fiction writer. His books were off the chain. I absolutely love his books. I didn't read all of them, but I read most of them, and they're very good. I started reading his books at the age, I'm going to say maybe 10 or 11, and that was only because my aunt had his books in her room, but she had a book of his in her room, and when she went to work one day, I started reading the book and could not put it down. And by the time she got home from work, I had finished the book. But she never knew that. So, Auntie Sis, if you're listening, sorry. But also, thank you for putting me on in an unknowing way. Okay, so let's talk about Mr. Donald Goines. And I hope I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. Donald Goines was born in Detroit, Michigan on December 15, 1936. His parents were a middle-class black Catholic couple that ran a laundry business, with his mother, Myrtle Goines, telling Donald that her family was descended from Jefferson Davis and a woman who was enslaved. Donald was the middle child of three and the only son. At age 15, he lied about his age and he joined the Air Forces and fought in the Korean War. Now, during his stint in the armed forces, Donald developed an addiction to heroin that continued after his honorable discharge in the mid 1950s. Now, in order to support his addiction, Donald committed crimes including pimping, larceny, robbery, illegal liquor manufacturing, and theft. He resided in several cities, including Kansas City, Missouri, and Junction City, Kansas, but mostly in his native Detroit. He was sentenced to prison several times, both state and federal. He began writing while serving a sentence in Michigan's Jackson's Penitentiary. Donald initially attempted to write westerns, but he decided to write urban fiction after reading Robert Iceberg Slim Beck's autobiography, Pimp, The Story of My Life. Donald continued to write novels at a fast pace in order to support his drug addictions, with some books taking only a month to complete. His sister Joanne later said that Donald wrote at a such fast pace in order to avoid committing more crimes and based of the characters in his books on people he knew in real life. Donald completed 16 books. So basically, he was writing these books about people he knew in real life and the game they were in and all types of stuff. So sometimes you got to be careful with that. In 1974, Donald published Crime Partners, the first book in the Kenyatta series, under the name Al C. Clark. Holloway House's chief executive, Bentley Morris, requested that Donald publish the book under a pseudonym in order to avoid having the sales of Donald's work suffer due to too many books releasing at once. The book dealt with an anti-character named after Jomo Kenyatta that ran an organization similar to the Black Panthers to clear the ghetto of crime. Now, in this book, The Low Road, Eddie B. Allen remarks that the series was a departure from some of Donald's other works, with the character of Kenyatta symbolizing a sense of liberation for Donald. Inner City Hoodlum, which Donald had finished before his death, was published in 1975. Now, set in Los Angeles, the novel was about heroin, money, and murder. On October 21st, 1974, Donald and his common law wife Shirley Saylor were discovered dead in their Highland Park, Michigan apartment. The police had received an anonymous phone call earlier that evening and responded, discovering Donald in the living room of the apartment and Shirley's body in the kitchen. Both Donald and Shirley had sustained multiple gunshot wounds to the chest and head. The identity of the two gunmen is unknown, as is the reason behind the murders. Popular theories involve Donald being murdered due to his basing several of his characters on real-life criminals, as well as the theory that Donald was killed due to his um, due to that he was in debt. He was in a lot of drug debt. Okay. At his funeral, a relative placed a book in his casket, but it was stolen. Hmm. He was popping these books out. He was writing these books. He was popping them out and everything. So here are the novels. The Kenyatta series was Crime Partners, 1974, Death List, 1974, Kenyatta's Escape, 1974, and Kenyatta's Last Hit, 1975. His standalone novels were Dope Fiend, 1971, Whoreson, 1972, Black Gangster, 1972, Street Players, 1973, White Man's Justice, Black Man's Grief, 1973, Black Girl Lost, 1974, El Dorado Red, 1974, Swamp Man, 1974, Never Die Alone, 1974, Cry Revenge, 1974, and he wrote that as Al C. Clark. Daddy Cool, 1974. Inner City Hoodlum, 1975. Now, Daddy Cool, I think that sounds familiar to me, and I think that was one of the books my auntie sis was reading that I had finished. So he was popping these books out left and right. All these books in 1974 that was put out was insane to me. That's like how many books? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books. 7 books in 1974. Excuse me. 9 books. 9 books in 1974 that he put out. And all those books were amazing. All of them. His influence. Donald Goines' writing has had an impact upon several people with like several rappers inserting mentions of Donald Goines and his writing into their lyrics. In his 1996 song, Trading War Stories, rapper Tupac writes Machiavelli was my tutor. Donald Goines, my father figure. On the Real Brothers album by hip-hop duo BG Knockout and Drista, the second one mentioned the author by rapping. Take a good look because you're looking at a crook my life been took right out of a Donald Goines book. Ludacris mentioned Donald Goines in his 2006 song Eyebrows Down. AZ compares himself to Donald Goines' work in rather unique with the line. Your mind's boggled, but I was deep as Donald Goines novels. Nas also named the song Black Girl Lost on his sophomore album. It was written after the book of Donald Goines. The New York rap trio Crew had a song called Goines' Tale, where all about Donald Goines' book titles were incorporated into the song lyrics. Rapper Jadakiss also referenced Donald Goines in the Sheep song Mighty D Block, Two Guns Up, with the lyrics, the revolve or the Maddies, cool, knife game like Daddy Cool's, since Bally Shoes. The rapper 50 Cent write in his self-help autobiography, Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter. And that personally, I didn't get into reading until I found writers like Donald Goines and Iceberg Slim who wrote in a voice that felt familiar to me. Goines' books have been utilized in several prison literacy programs, and his novel Dope Fiend has been taught in a Rutgers University class. Films. Some of Donald's work have been adapted into film. His book Crime Partners was turned into a 2001 film starring Ice-T, Snoop Dogg, and Ja Rule. And in 2004, his book Never Die Alone was also released as a film starring DMX. In 1984, the graphic novel adaptation of the book Daddy Cool was released by Melrose Square, a division of Holloway House. There have been reproductions since 1984, but it was the only graphic of its kind by Donald Goines that was published by Melrose Square. I would love to get a hold of Donald Goines' books. You know what I'm saying? Because I would love to have all his books in my collection because his writing was so phenomenal. And if he was still alive, not sure how long he would have lived, if he didn't get killed. Oh my God, could you imagine more books coming out? I mean, this is a lot right now that I have read out to you. But could you have imagined if he was still living, how many more books will be put out? I'm telling you. Wow. And he wrote books that street dudes could relate to. Okay? He was writing about what he was experiencing. He didn't know that it was going to be other people, other street dudes from, all over in different cities and states that could relate to him. So I'm going to say this. Donald Goines is up there as one of my fans. I really do love his books. I really do. And I do think Daddy Cool was one of the books that I read, because I remember that name, and I think that's the book my aunt had that I read very quickly. So, and I was very young, okay, reading those type of books when I wasn't supposed to. But Donald Goines had a lot of influence in the rap game, and the ones I mentioned here. So, it would have been great for him to live to see how much influence he had, and to really get his flowers. But he was murdered. It's unfortunate that his wife was murdered as well. We don't know why. It's still a mystery. The guys that did it, we still don't know who they are, and we may never know. But I also feel that Donald Goines was taken way too soon. I feel like his work wasn't finished just yet because he had more stories to tell. But anyway, you guys, have any of you ever read one of his books? And if you did, let me know in the comment section, and I will talk to you guys later. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.